The first time I met Raghav, I was in a small apartment, and his two older sisters were constructing forts in the living room, and Super Mario was singing in the background. And in the kitchen, there was a wall of granola bars and pudding cups and candy bars, basically sugar heaven. In the middle of all this was an 8-year-old boy with big brown eyes and a mischievous smile playing at the sides of his mouth. Raghav's father was a computer programmer, and he barely came home by 9 p.m. most nights. His mother was doing a medical residency in New York City, and she barely came home at all. I talked to Raghav for a couple of minutes, and I asked him questions, and he would answer them with movie quotes and TV quotes and random noises, basically anything that wasn't an answer to my question. I quickly realized that he had a pretty severe case of ADHD that his parents didn't even know about. Raghav's father led me over to the kitchen table, and he said, "Raghav needs a lot of help, and I want him to be on grade level as quickly as possible so that he can keep up with his peers. Do you think you can help him?" Now, at that point, I had had no ADHD training at all, and I didn't know the first thing of what I would do to help Raghav. But I had just graduated from college, and I wanted to save up as much money as quickly as possible so that I could get out of my parents' house as quickly as humanly possible. So I said yes. If you were to take a trip into Raghav's brain, you would find 100 rooms, and in each room there would be 10 TV stations blasting 10 different shows, and there'd be 3 parties going on, and on top of that there would be psychedelic rainbow-colored pigs bouncing from room to room. If you had a brain like that, you would also find it hard to concentrate. Raghav, if I had 10 apples and I gave you 3 apples, how many apples would I have left? I successfully possess on my face! Eek! Ow! Eek! Raghav? Flying pigs in the sky! Ahoy! Raghav! Oh no! Jenny's mad! Oh no! I need to turn on this head thing. Raghav, if I gave you 3 apples, would we be doing addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division? Multiplication? No, division? Subtraction? This went on for a couple of weeks before I realized that we weren't getting anywhere. Raghav was in 3rd grade, but he barely had a 1st grade knowledge. He didn't know how to tell time, he didn't know how to use a ruler. So I decided that we need to dial it way back and go back to things he knew how to do. So I drew 3 cakes on the blackboard, and I drew 3 more cakes, and I had him count them out. 3 plus 3 equals 6. I taught him about how the moon orbited the Earth, and I would stand there and I would pretend to be the Earth, and I would have him run around me a couple of times pretending to be the moon. And he loved that, because if there's one thing an ADHD kid is good at, it's running around in circles for an extended amount of time. And slowly, as we were doing problems that he was good at, his confidence grew, and he stopped checking my face for approval, and he was a little bit less anxious. He still had his bad days. Like sometimes he wouldn't get enough sleep, or he'd been playing video games and he was really jittery when I came and couldn't pay attention. So I always felt like we were moving 2 steps forward, 1 step back. One day, his grandmother, who had been staying with them for the summer, was giving me my weekly check. And as I reached out to take it, she paused, pulled it back, and looked at me. "Is he improving?" she said. Oh God. At that second, all the self-doubts I've ever felt in my life came flooding to the front of my mind, and I was like, what if Raghav's parents didn't think what I was doing was enough? What if they didn't think that counting cakes and moon orbits were legitimate ways for their son to go on in his education? Yeah, he's doing great. We're doing math and science and, yeah, doing great. Back in my car, I could feel the sun beating down on me, and the smell of the fabric upholstery suffocated me as I thought, shit. I thought of all the more competent tutors there must be out there, tutors who knew about the psychology of ADHD, tutors who could make lesson plans and behavior plans like nobody else's business. I could imagine Raghav's parents saying, that Jenny girl doesn't seem to be doing very much. He used to be in 3rd grade, and now he's doing 1st grade work. He's moving backwards, not forwards. Let's fire her. The next couple of weeks, I was so stressed out and paranoid that I kept thinking of ways to measure my success with Raghav, to prove that we were doing something. I gave him worksheets, I gave him tests, and one day I even recorded him while he was working. And I don't know how long that would have continued, except that 8 months into tutoring Raghav, I finally got the opportunity to move out of my parents' house. And you know what surprised me is that when I told Raghav's parents that I was leaving, and this was the first time that we talked in about 8 months, they told me how grateful they were for my help and how much they had seen him improve. And then I talked to Raghav. Raghav, I'm going to move in a month. Do you know what that means? Yes, it means that my dad has to find another tutor. Yeah, and then maybe she can help you, and then you can go to big boy school soon, yeah? I hope she's nice. I hope so too. Not like my old babysitter who used to lock me in the closet. What? My old babysitter used to lock me in the closet, and it was so dark and it was so scary, and she's like, are you gonna pay attention? And I was like, yeah, and it was so dark. I looked at Raghav then, and I held out my arms. And as I wrapped him in a huge hug, I realized that in the last couple of days, I had been thinking like Raghav. I had been so worried about what other people were thinking and what I thought other people were thinking based on their facial expressions and words that they said, and I was so terrified about what I thought other people were thinking of me, when in the reality, none of that matters. None of that fucking matters, because you don't know what's going on in someone else's head, and you don't know what they're really going through. Whether you're 8 or you're 22, the only thing we really can do is do what we're doing, do it well, and hope to God that that's enough.